coming back from a timeout is pretty interesting. Where to go from here and what might possibly be helpful. Consider this. Her voice was tired. It spoke of a heavy load carried far too long. Reverend Chad, this is Trudy. I don't know whether you remember me or not, but Unity helped me last month with some used tires so I could get my car inspected. I recalled the tires, but couldn't remember Trudy or her situation. She's not alone. We receive any number of calls a month from children of God working out variations on Trudy's predicament. My mom called it surviving a champagne country on a beer budget. Mom knew wherever she spoke. Life had dealt her that hand in 1939 as a 28-year-old single parent to 3 kids under the age of 5. We wound up down in Florida after a stopover at the family hog and tobacco farm up the holler in Sugar Grove, North Carolina. And then we spent a few months in Tacoma Park, Maryland. Survival was probably a little easier in those days. At least it seemed to be in Florida, which may well have influenced Mom's choice to move there. Folks lived and worked in the same neighborhood. Owning a car wasn't mandatory. Monthly payments, insurance, tags, gas, and tires weren't either. A pair of shorts and a t-shirt sufficed as a wardrobe. Labels were irrelevant. Shoes were optional. Winter required only an occasional blanket to keep off the night chill. Kraft dinner was a staple. My brother and I, Dennis, got a little older and more experienced. Our hunting and fishing and gathering expeditions added an abundance of local culinary delights to our daily diet, including delicacies like mangoes and oranges and bananas and tangerines and coconuts and clams and oysters and pompano and red snapper and mullet and shrimp and the southern spiny lobster that the locals in those days called bug. My Florida childhood in the 40s was way beyond survival. I remember it being a rich and exciting adventure played out in an unpolluted paradise, free of both environmental degradation and TV-driven commercialism. I didn't have to deal with the fantasy that my life was impoverished because I didn't munch out regularly on Happy Meals, wear Nike swoosh, and faithfully collect every new Game Boy that showed up at Toys R Us. I know it got a little dicey around the house when rent time or a trip to the grocery shop came along. For sure, we weren't, as Mom used to say, living high off the hog. But something was going on unique to the times that took most of the sting out of being, shall we say, poor as church mice. In addition to the blessing of being pre-TV, thus clueless about what we were missing, we were also living in a World War II culture of imposed simplicity. Some of you remember that too. Due to the war and the rationing that came with it, everyone was making do with a lot less. Conspicuous consumption was no longer envied or admired. It was deplored, while conservation and tightening the belt were applauded. I remember being proud of how our Spartan lifestyle was helping to win the war. As artificial as it was, I was being introduced to the process that leads to what the Buddha called the greatest gain, an abiding sense of contentment that flows from living light on the land. But I doubt that Trudy and her kids think of themselves as being either patriotic or spiritually blessed, for that matter. It seems our tendency to be preoccupied with the material world, also known as worshiping mammon, is a lot more evident now than it was 70 years ago. I suppose that's primarily due to 2 undeniable facts. First, there's a lot more stuff around these days to be discontent about not having. And second, we are so dumb, we are as dumb as ever regarding the true source of contentment. So many things to have, so little time, so little money. The real problem lies in the fact that we constantly satisfy desire after desire and still find ourselves firmly stuck in the theater of longing. wanting more and more and more. Ask yourself, how many lovely sensations, evocative thoughts, inspiring sights, beautiful sounds, delicious tastes, and rapturous feelings have you already experienced in your life? Just stop and think about that for a moment. How many of those have you already experienced? For me, it was countless. I couldn't even begin to enumerate, much less remember. Infinitely more than we could ever possibly remember. But even all of that hasn't come close to giving you a satisfied mind. Okay. If acquiring and consuming provide no lasting meaning or purpose to our lives, why do we continue? And that's because we are still dumb as lemons regarding the prime directive. A prime directive that flowed out of all the masters of the conscious life regarding the path to true contentment. Jesus revealed it this way. Lay up not for yourself treasure on earth, where moth and rust consume, where thieves break through and steal, but lay up for yourself treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust consume, nor thieves break through and steal. For where your treasure is, there also is your heart. Did you catch that? You got a choice about what venue in your life you assign the ultimate significance to. And he's encouraging us to be very mindful about doing that to the stuff that's part of your earth world, this human experience. And he goes on to explain why. Where moth and rust consume. Well, it's always changing. How many varieties of forces of change are out there operating on the stuff that's part of the material domain? There's no end to them. An infinite variety of those forces of change. And I read that. I just keep coming back to that. I look at that teaching on the treasures, as the prime directive of the Jesus ethic. If you can capture that, he took it deeper in that sense than any other of the avatars I've read. Lay up not for yourself treasure on earth. Be very mindful about assigning earth stuff ultimate significance, because it's always coming and going. There's nothing permanent about any of it. It's an invitation to get real clear about where you ground your value system. Giving earth stuff treasure status locks us into wanting it, because that's where our heart has been told it needs to be happy. Remember how he finished the teaching? For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Yeah. On the other hand, giving the stuff that's heavenly in nature, within us, treasure status, locks us into wanting it to be the constant of our lives, because our heart now hears that wisdom and simplicity, peace, and love form the basis of its happiness. We really don't need all that much to be supremely happy. Opting out of a value system anchored in the material domain will liberate us to enjoy the kind of contentment and simplicity that gives birth to genuine happiness and peace. As the forces of craving and acquiring diminish, and we are less driven by the impulses of the wanting mind, serenity will become an old and constant friend. But it won't, for a moment, disengage us from our mission to heal the sick and to give the blind vision. In fact, we'll find ourselves ministering with greater strength and enthusiasm than ever. Generosity will become a spontaneous expression of our liberation from materialism, and we'll give generously of our time, our creativity, our treasure, our caring, wherever and whenever the opportunity presents itself. Thanks, Trudy, I say. Thanks, Trudy, for giving us the opportunity to express a little loving kindness. And remember, you are not alone in this. None of us are. Thank you for listening. All right.